Seriously, you got the Black Keys, Akron, Ohio. You got LeBron James, Akron, Ohio. And now I got the Akron AWOL from Shusterman. What's he thinking? Do like all great things come from Akron, Ohio? Wait, I'm from Akron, Ohio. I kind of got sucked down a hole here with Neal Shusterman when I picked up Scythe. Honestly, I was headed home on the weekend and literally picked up the book because I was attracted to the book cover. Totally intrigued by the description on the back of the book. Yes, we do judge books by their covers. This one is really good. I'll do another video on the book cover later. I love the premise of Scythe, and when I finished this one, I sought out some of his earlier books and found the Unwind dystopia. What does he call it? No, what does he call it? He calls it, what does he call it? Oh yes, he calls it the dystology. Forgot that. I got through 2 of the dystology and that was enough for me, but I discovered his formula which seems to work really well for Shusterman. Coming up next on Punk Right, we'll explore the parallel plot structure as a way of storytelling and organizing more complex structure if you have multiple heroes. Stick around. Shusterman has a certain formula for his books that I call the Star Wars structure, which is basically a parallel plot structure where you have 2 main characters or 2 heroes that are driving that story. He's done it in all 3 of the books that I read. It's really an effective technique to deal with multiple characters that are protagonists. Not to let Star Wars go by the wayside, let's look at what George Lucas did with the 2 major plot lines that began as 2 different stories in Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope. The film follows a group. You have Luke, R2-D2, you got Obi-Wan Kenobi on one side, and the other group is Han Solo, Leia, and the others. These 2 stories run parallel to each other the entire time, and then they converge at the end as the group overcomes the ultimate antagonist of fighting the Death Star. This is the culminating event or the climax of the story that is pretty satisfying. It's why we like Star Wars. It seems that Luke is the champion because he's the Jedi and seems to be the main character, but I think you could argue that with Han and his cohort, he is an important character that also drives the story. Both of these stories stand alone, and if you could change perspectives for just a moment, you could easily make Han the main character of the story. Empire and Return of the Jedi also follow similar structures, and Shusterman makes really good work of this parallel structure in his books. Scythe was published in 2016, and it is a dystopian novel. The premise of the novel is that the society has achieved the impossible, which is eternal life. They figured out how to cheat death. Even if you have some sort of dismemberment or mutilation, they can still put you back together, which is kind of gruesome sometimes. In this world, a supercomputer called the Thunderhead manages everything: food, conduct, work, morality, everything but death, which has been handed to a special group of people called the Scythes. Their only social responsibility is to kill people as a means of controlling population. How, where, when, who, all of that is up to the Scythe. On one side, you have a group with Citra and Scythe Faraday, which is a representative of a nobility, and on the other side, you have Rowan and Scythe Goddard, which is representative of just pure power and its capacities. And Shusterman uses the ideological divide to create the antagonist and the protagonistic forces that are the main conflicts of the story. What I like about Shusterman's books are the social commentaries that he brings forth. And he builds worlds that make us think, really, what are we doing in our own society? This is why it's young adult literature. Good stuff. There's not a whole lot of fluff in there, and it actually made me cringe a little bit at some of the things that he's written. Pretty interesting. I also read the first 2 books in the dystology of the Unwind dystology, he calls it. Unwind and Unholy. I'm going to go on for a second with a little bit of a rant, a digression about the trilogy books. Any trilogy book series, really. First off, I have no problem with trilogies. And I like the idea of worlds and continuing the worlds that are so compelling that they demand more, that you keep writing about it. My problem comes when the writing of 2 books is really just one book that's been extended. They kind of drag things on, and this really breaks up the story for me and messes a little bit with the character arcs. Unholy in particular is obviously a second book. They want you to go on to the third, and this is why I found this a little less satisfying as a read. Well, What are you going to do? I imagine this can probably be some of the publishing companies as well. They want you to produce a series, and so you just have to drag on your story when maybe there just is not enough story. Point is, I've read stories where the actual story is sacrificed, and that's how I felt about Unholy. That's my rant. But I do want to take a look at Unwind. Unwind? Damn. Good book. He did a great job writing this out. Unwind is also a dystopian novel. Fantastic premise. A little bit gruesome. You know, it's not for young children. But in this world, there's a great war that's occurred over aborting children. The legal compromise was unwinding, as they call it. It's a voluntary act by parents to dismember and distribute the body parts of their children to others who need them. It was seen as a social duty. Of course, the kids are not totally into it, and so the story follows as 3 kids escape their condemnation of being unwound. On one side, you've got Connor, who is from Akron, Ohio. He is the Akron AWOL. I love that. And you have Risa. Those two become a love interest, and they run on one side of the story, which is your first parallel plot. On the other side, you have another social commentary about religious perspectives. This is represented by a character called Lev. And those two beautifully correspond all the way till the end. The major talking point about this type of structure is how it all comes together. The main conflicts, which are built around larger social themes, they are defined by the journeys of the main characters. And if there are to be 2 parallel plot lines, it is hugely important that the culminating climax brings these 2 together in an effective way, because it's all about the climax. If you don't do that, if you don't build that point and you just leave it hanging there, which is kind of how I felt with this a little bit, it just doesn't hit the mark and it's not satisfying as a story. Of these 3, I would say Unwind is the best written and he does the best job of making a cohesive finish towards that climax. So authors, if you're interested in exploring how to put your book together using parallel structure, check out the Shusterman books. He does it repetitively in his story structure, and there's a lot you can learn from that. Till then, just keep on writing, punk write. Shit. Got some carrots stuck in my throat. Wow.